let me give you a little bit of background on Brooke. She's a Fox News correspondent. Politics is her thing. There's no doubt about that. She's a Boston University graduate. Did you guys know that, even though you had her on the show before?
Did not know that.
Did not know that. Do you know she's an Did you know she's an opera singer?
Also did not know
All
that.
right. Okay. See, I'm bringing this, even though she's been on the show before, I'm actually giving some additional information on her background. So I got to welcome Brooke to the show. Brooke, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. And I'll give another fun fact.
Okay.
Because I'm an opera singer, if you wanted to reach me on AOL Instant Messenger, my IM screen name was Broadway Brooke 17.
Wow. All right. All right.
Kind of lame, but it stuck. It really did stick. So here I am, Broadway Brooke 17, coming at you with the latest news.
All right. Well, I'm going to give myself a little plug here, too. Did you ever sing at the Metropolitan Opera House?
I did not. Did you?
No.
Oh.
No, but I did do a podcast on the Metropolitan Opera House on the Old Gravy podcast. There was a murder at the Met in 1980. A violinist during the Berlin Ballet was actually murdered at intermission. And,
oh, my God.
And she was murdered by a stagehand, and I was connected to that world because I've worked as a stagehand in New York City. My dad was a New York stagehand, and he was a New York police officer, too. Yeah. And it's a fascinating story, and I'm connected to the family because it's really a stagehand story and how the murder occurred that night. But because you're an opera singer, I was like, oh, what an opportunity to give myself give the Old Gravy podcast.
That's incredible. Oh, I love it. I'd love to listen to that. That is awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, Brooke, it's great to have you. And I thought it was interesting because you told me you have an article coming out, or is your article out right now?
You know, I may have teased it just a little too early. It's ready to go, but it's not going to come out until Monday or Tuesday or so. But I'm happy to talk about it just because it really is just a piece that kind of puts together a lot about things that are pretty much already out there. But when you put it all together, it's when it really just becomes part of this really interesting Russiagate story that just continues to unfold.
So, you know what? I love, I'm going to, please tell the audience the title. I think it's a great title.
Well, the title, I think, unless my editors changed,
okay,
was going to be, the premise of the piece really is, what did President Obama know and when did he know it? Having to do with the Trump-Russia investigation. And just so you and the audience knows, and audience, forgive me, because I think I said this last time I was on the show, but I have been covering this storyline from the very beginning. I started at Fox News in 2014, but I became a politics reporter at Fox News the day after James Comey was fired as FBI director, which means I had just started in that role just days before Special Counsel Robert Mueller was appointed to take over the whole Crossfire hurricane investigation. So I have been covering this from the very beginning. And, you know, it's funny, I was so young. I was 23 or 24 years old at the time when this all started. And I could never confirm the reports that the Washington Post and the New York Times were putting out. I couldn't do it. And I thought, okay, well, I don't have good enough sources yet. I'm just not there. But you know what? I was right the whole time because I couldn't confirm the reports because it was all made up. It wasn't real. And so when the Mueller report came out, I thought, oh, my God, I felt so vindicated with my reporting because I'm like, okay, I was onto something. I knew this was weird. I knew none of this was true.
Nothing was making sense to you.
Nothing was making sense, and I couldn't quite confirm any of it. And, you know, I had a source actually meet with me once early on who was pretty high up in the Justice Department at the time, working closely to Mueller, and that source said, never report on a grand jury subpoena, never report on testimony that you think you've heard through sources before the grand jury. Be careful, you're too young. And listening to these sources, you know, you might get yourself into trouble. Yeah. So I took his advice. I was really careful, but being careful, you know, led us to the actual truth. And we're just learning more and more every day. And I'm sure you've been covering this for years as well and following along. So a lot of the news that we're putting out now is not really like, oh, my God, bombshell news. It's just confirmation of what we've known the whole time. Don't you agree?
No, I agree. It's really everyone knew, especially if you were from a certain political thought, that this was a total scam. And what do you see now? Like, what do you think is the most important thing that can, like, if you're going to kind of put this in front of the Democrats? So you got Joe Scarborough on MSNBC saying there's nothing to see here. This is outrageous. This is so wrong. And I'm mentioning Joe Scarborough, but this is how they're defending it right now. What do you think is one of the big issues that say, well, take a look at this? What do you think that punch in the face is?
I just think it's all so incredibly laughable. I mean, I try not to comment on the rest of the media, but I just have to say they really do a number. When there is a convenient investigation for them, so an investigation into Trump or an investigation into Republicans, they beat the coverage like a dead horse over and over. But when the resolution or the findings come out, and the investigation happened to be a totally politicized, weaponized, ridiculous hoax, really, they kind of forget to tell their audience how it turned out. And they just let it fester. And that's exactly what happened with the Trump-Russia investigation. Because if you ask the majority of Americans who are not tuned into Fox News, they didn't realize that special counsel John Durham was appointed to investigate why the heck the Trump-Russia probe began in the first place. They had no idea. And guess what? The media didn't cover his report saying that Hillary Clinton weaponized the entire intelligence community. It was an opposition research campaign that went completely awry and took advantage of the FBI, the CIA, and really damaged the country, wasted millions and millions of taxpayer dollars. They forgot to say that. Yeah. And that was the findings of John Durham's report. But right now, I mean, you have the key players in these top administration roles. John Ratcliffe in the first Trump administration was director of national intelligence. Obviously, Tulsi Gabbard is in that position for this administration. Yep. But at the end of the first Trump administration, John Ratcliffe was declassifying thousands of these documents. And this has been I'm loving my job. Every day I love my job, but I'm loving it so much this summer because I am digging back into this topic that has really just kind of defined my entire career, but it's something that I care a lot about. Yep. And so to dig back into reporting and my articles I published 5 years ago, I'm looking at documents that were declassified 5 years ago that everyone forgot about or didn't even pay attention to. It's just amazing to see how this is all unfolded. So you have John Ratcliffe at the CIA now, and Gabbard at ODNI, and Kash Patel, who was a chief investigator on the House Intelligence Committee when this all started. So all these people have been kind of plugging along to uncover the truth here for many, many years, and we finally have them in positions of power to be able to really bring all of this to a forefront. What
you're saying is the American people will get transparency. Now, will most of the media report on it? No. And Devin Nunes, wasn't he had all this stuff, all this information too. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. Devin Nunes was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, at the time, he was his chief investigator. So what they did was they uncovered the fact that the dossier was used as the basis to get those FISA warrants to spy on Carter Page and others. And everybody now knows that the dossier was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC, and everybody knows that the dossier was completely false and has been discredited many, many times. And that is exactly what Devin Nunes and Kash Patel were saying years and years ago, and everybody called them conspiracy theorists. But we know now that that's true. And we know that day after day after day with document after document being declassified. So that's just kind of, it's all very harmonious how everybody's in the positions they need to be in now to get this out to the American people.
And just, for the listeners, so what I think a big piece of this is coming out is that they were claiming forever that the Steele dossier, which was paid for by Hillary Clinton's to a law firm. It was just politics. It was getting dirt on the opposition if it's made up or whatever. And the intelligence agencies and the FBI said they didn't include it in when they put that report together after Trump was elected, correct? But now
the ICA.
Yes, the ICA. So now we're finding out that they did include it. And why don't you explain that to the audience? What did they include or what didn't they include?
So the intelligence community assessment of 2017 was basically an assessment to determine, what went on in the election and whatnot. And we've known, or at least I've been reporting for a few years, that this dossier, there was a fight between the CIA and the FBI to have the dossier included. But a lot of top officials at the CIA argued that it should not be included because it was just internet rumor. That's how they described it.
Yeah.
But FBI Deputy Director at the time, Andrew McCabe, pushed for its inclusion. So ultimately they landed with, well, this is what we knew before. They landed with an agreement that the dossier would be a footnote in the ICA. Mm-hmm. But you know what? We learned that it was a little bit included more than just a footnote because then CIA Director John Brennan pushed for its inclusion, knowing that the top officials at the CIA working under him, knowing the fact that that was internet rumor. John Brennan also knew that Hillary Clinton had drummed up a plan to tie Trump to Russia to distract from her private email server. We know that he knew this because there are handwritten notes and a criminal referral to the FBI that he sent after he briefed President Obama in August 2016. So this ICA came out in January, and you have John Brennan pushing for this fake document that he knows was tied to Hillary Clinton, who he knew was drumming up a fake plan to tie Trump to Russia to distract from that FBI investigation into her use of a private email server and her handling of classified documents. He pushed for that to be included in a intelligence product. But of course, this is the same intelligence community that, despite who is in the White House, irregardless, this is the same intelligence community that claimed that COVID was, came out of a bat, and the same intelligence community that said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, even though we all know now that the whole intelligence community says COVID was out of a lab leak, and Hunter Biden has many a time admitted that was his own laptop. So it just all kind of, it's part of the same playbook.
Yeah, and Brennan specifically was going on doing news interviews on TV or newspaper interviews, acting like he had no idea about the Steele dossier. Meanwhile, he's in the office pushing for it to be included in the report. Right.
And then, of course, you have former President Obama, who was present for a briefing in August 2016. And not only was he present, we don't know, maybe he called for it. It was an Oval Office meeting with Brennan, where Brennan told him about the Clinton plan. And then President Obama was briefed on the ICA, and he was briefed on all of it. Also, another note, I'm going back through all of my old reporting, and I thought to myself today, there were a number of meetings that President Obama held in his office with this national security team, including FBI Director Comey. There was actually an email that then National Security Advisor Susan Rice sent to herself on January 20th. And that email was declassified back in 2020, but it was an email memorializing a meeting she had in the Oval Office on January 5th of 2017 with Comey, with Brennan, with Clapper, with President Obama and Vice President at the time Biden. And it was like a documented meeting, just saying that everything was going by the book at the FBI. Do you recall President Trump ever having Christopher Wray in the Oval Office for meetings? And do you recall, President Trump having Cash in the Oval Office for meetings? Because I'm pretty sure the FBI is supposed to act independently of the president. So the president should not really be being briefed about investigations going on at the FBI. right?
Yeah.
I mean, Democrats constantly claim that Trump is controlling the DOJ and the FBI,
Yeah.
but doesn't this show that Obama was very much in step and in tune and following along with what was going on over at the FBI? I don't know.
There was
I don't mean to
there was
assume.
no firewall there. I mean,
No.
and that's all coming out. And you just made a good point that these investigations are supposed to be completely independent of the president and the executive office.
Right. And so why Susan Rice at the time had an email? I mean, going through the document, it's like almost for lack of a better term, cover your you-know-what email. We are going by the book. Everything is good. Like, that's what it was. This investigation is following steps by the book. Like, who talks like that?
Yeah, it's obvious you're up to no good if you're sending an email to yourself like that. I mean,
making sure you're doing it before you leave the White House, because the meeting was on January 5th, but she didn't forward that email to herself until January 20th. So what was that all about, too? I don't know. Lots of questions still out there, or I'm still coming up with. But the great news is that I think we have people in power who care about getting to the bottom of this, and I think they will answer questions and be transparent for the American people.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away. I will say this. Politically, I think people are – it's interesting. When it's Comey, Clapper, or Brennan, and I'm just talking about the average American, right? They're kind of like, well, and this is where it's going to get challenging. This is where the full court press and the defense of all this is going to come out from the left very hard through whatever network, whatever they need to do. Now that I feel people are very uncomfortable that Obama, like if it was Comey, Clapper, and Brennan who were going to get punished, they're out of they were running agencies. The average American, if they did something wrong, we'll punish them. But what I really think is that's going to create a lot of issues in the country is that Obama appears, and it looks like they might be able to prove this, he was up to his neck in this.
I mean, he and his team put out a statement, which I think, I mean, they've ignored this for many years. And President Trump, back in 2020, claimed over and over, and people, said that he was a conspiracy theorist himself. President Trump has been saying for half a decade now that President Obama was involved in all of this. Yeah. And he continues to. And guess what? We continue to learn about things that he learned and knew about all of this. So how involved was he? We don't know. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. But Obama did have his team put out a rare statement. And I think, to be fair to the viewers and balanced, I will read it. His office said, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the Trump White House with a response, but the claims are outrageous enough to merit one. An Obama spokesman says that the bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the documents declassified last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. And that was the only statement they put out. I've reached out to his office about the story that I'm hoping to publish early next week, but we'll see. We'll see. But again, that story that's not yet published is just really a kind of a culmination and just a record of everything that we've already published. So,
I want to ask you a question, and I know you have to be, as your network says, fair and balanced. What I don't understand, and I watched the NPR interview, which I guess was in December of 2020. So Trump has won the office. Before he comes in, this alleged cabal. I just think, if I'm going to come to Obama's defense for a minute, okay, which I'm not doing because I think all the evidence is pointing that he knew what was going on. I don't know what the benefit what was the benefit for him? Meaning you're going to leave, you were, the first African-American president, you're leaving office. What was the motivation if he was allegedly involved? Like, I'm like, why would he make such a bonehead decision to ever get anywhere near that? Like, we're talking about firewalling yourself from stuff like this. Maybe he knew they were up to no good, but it really seems, and I had sent you that NPR interview that he did in December. It was very weird. Like, he left the interview to come back to kind of explain everything. And listeners, you can look it up. It's a 2020 interview with NPR. I'm just thinking, like, what was his decision process to try to? Why would he get involved in something like this?
I don't know. And again, we don't know if he actually was involved. If his top national security officials and intelligence officials came to the Oval Office to brief him on information and intelligence they had, again, to his defense, he was being briefed. He's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
If there was this whole basically conspiracy investigation and all of this going on, do I think the former president knew all about it? No, because you're right. Why would he need to? What was going to happen? What was there to gain? But I just don't know that he didn't know anything. But there are just so many people. Obviously, DNI Gabbard sent along criminal referrals to the DOJ. We learned this week there is an active grand jury investigation into all of this right now. I don't have additional specifics on that, but I do think we're going to be learning and rethinking and thinking back to a lot of names that we haven't heard in a while, like Loretta Lynch, who was Attorney General.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not forget she had a meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac in July of 2016, just, 3 weeks before she was in the Oval Office with Brennan and Obama, learning that Clinton was coming up with this plan. I mean, you can hear about Susan Rice, just thinking back to that email. Clapper, Brennan, Comey, Andrew McCabe, some of the Mueller investigators. We don't know.
Right.
And I think to me, it just the Durham investigation ended a little bit too quietly. And I just think that it's really great that this has come back to the forefront of people's minds, because I just think that we need to get to the bottom of what really happened in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. I mean, it's a crazy political story that you'd love to write like a movie about when you get to the bottom of it all, Right.
And we're not, and like, even like, I just gave Obama, like, in the sense, I wouldn't know what his mindset would be to get so involved in that. So in a way, I'm defending him right here. Brennan,
of course.
Brennan, I think, is hard to defend at this point.
Well, Brennan's under criminal investigation at the FBI, and so is Comey. We know that for sure. I actually broke that last month. So we know that those two are specifically under investigation, and we don't know specifically who else is. But, it will be really interesting to see how this all plays out. And I will just say, do I think anybody's going to end up in handcuffs? I don't.
Yeah.
I do not think anybody is going to pay the price of being put in prison for any of this. I really don't. And I'm not saying that they should. Right. I think that these people were so politically savvy and so savvy in the bureaucracy and savvy with the law that there is a way to get through all of this. There were loopholes to get through all, to make sure that what they were doing was above board, but just dirty. Do you see what I mean?
No, I know.
Everyone says people belong in handcuffs. Do they? No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know yet. But do I think that's where we end up here? I don't.
No.
I just think yeah.
I think that's a good answer. And sometimes people get carried away, but setting the expectations like you just did there, and especially from someone who's been looking at this for a long time, it's good that the audience and listeners hear that. Like, really, you don't get too excited about this. It's interesting. Let's see where it goes. I'd like to ask you one last question. I thought Rubio, and I actually like his press secretary or whatever, who used to be on Fox.
Bruce.
Yeah, I don't. Do you think I saw that press conference? Do you think he needs to say more about what he said in the Senate intelligence report, and then what his spokesperson said? It's Tammy, right?
It is Tammy, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I missed that whole press conference, so I don't know if I can comment accurately on that, because I'm not exactly sure what we're referring to. But yes, Senator at the time Rubio was on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they did put out election reports. But I don't think that report discounts all of the activities that we are talking about here.
Yeah, and I actually think Rubio needs to speak more on that when he gets the opportunity. But we're going to wrap it up. But when is your article coming out, do you think? And where can people find it?
Early next week, tune into foxnews.com. That's where all of my work is published, and I think it'll be fun to follow along as we keep covering all of this, mine and my colleagues' work. And I do think that the audience can get the full truth and nothing but the truth when they read on foxnews.com. So tune in, and we'd love to have you as our audience as well.
Sounds good. Hey, Brooke, thanks for joining us on this summer night on a Friday night. I really appreciate your time, and you delivered some great information, and you also set expectations, which is always good to do for the audience. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too. Have a great weekend.